online.
Okay, so today we're talking about one of my favorite topics and definitely one of the most important skills for you to have going into university, which is research. So, what is research? Now, the definition that I have for research is that research is defined as the creation of new knowledge and or the use of existing knowledge in a new and creative way so as to generate new concepts, methodologies, and understandings. So what does that mean? Research is creation. Research is using knowledge, is using the world around us to create new knowledge. It's the creation of something new. It's finding new ways to answer questions, to solve problems. And for me, that's why research is so exciting. Research is your opportunity to make sense of the world around you in meaningful ways. Research is about figuring out what is important to you, what is interesting to you, and asking questions about it, finding out more about it. We can research anything, and you should be researching everything. Research is a really important skill to have going into university, and it will help you understand the information that you're learning in your classes, in your lectures, and it'll help you ultimately write a thesis or do a research project, which everybody has to do as part of your university life. So that's a little bit about what research is. Now let's go into a little bit about how research works. What are some research strategies? How can I do my research effectively? One of the first strategies is to do a KWL chart. This is one example of an organizer, of organizing your knowledge. KWL stands for know, want to know, learn. So you're going to have three columns, like in the picture. The first column is what you already know. Part of doing research is thinking about the information that you already have. What information is available? What do you know about a topic? That's K. Keeping track of what you know will help you figure out what direction you need to go in. What you want to know, or W, is about the questions that you have. Based on the information that you know, and the things that you want to find out. What do you want to know? What questions do you have about the information that you already have? What you want to know, the W column, you will add to regularly as you do your research. The final column is L, or what you've learned. This is where you keep track of the answers to the questions. What information do you get as you're doing your research? Organizing your research, in this way will help you structure your research and will help you keep track of everything that you're doing. This is one example of an organizer. Another example is a mind map. This is an organizer that I use a lot more often. This is a good tool for brainstorming. It's where you're just throwing everything that you're thinking down on a page, all of the ideas that you have, the questions that you have, the hypotheses that you have. How are they coming up? How are they related to each other? How is this idea related to this idea, connected to this question, connected to this definition? These details, these examples. Throwing that on a piece of paper and connecting it will help you see the project in front of you, to see the information in front of you, and to see why it is meaningful, how it is connected to each other, and what you can do with it, which is where research is interesting. Next, keep track of new ideas and questions. You can keep track of these new ideas and questions in any ways that you want. But as things come up, as new things pop into your head, you should be writing them down or keeping track of them in some way. I remember I had an advisor once tell me that as I'm working on my research project, I should keep a notebook with me because you never know when a new idea will come to you, when a new thought will come to you. And she said, this notebook should be exclusively for your research project. If you are walking down a street one day, if you're walking through a city, you're walking through a park, you're sitting by yourself in the library, you're eating food, and you have a new idea, take out this notebook and write it down. Because if you're not writing these things down, if you're not keeping track of these new ideas, you will forget them. And I have forgotten so many new ideas that I try as much as possible to write these things down. It'll help you a lot. and it'll make sure you're building on the knowledge that you've had. Next, write and investigate hypotheses. What this means is if you think you have an expectation, if you think you know what's going to happen, or you have an idea of what might happen, write that down. Keep track of those things. Keep track of what you think is going to happen. Because if you have a direction, if you know, I think that this is what's gonna happen, or what will occur if I do this, then you can test that. And testing those hypotheses and either proving them right or proving them wrong is going to give you good direction into what to do next in your research. So keep track of those things. Next, give yourself time limits. Generally, research projects have a time limit already. You have to turn it in. I have to write a thesis by this date. I need to turn in my final paper by this date. So break down your project into small chunks. Break down your project into small tasks, and then give yourself time limits for each of those tasks. So right now, I'm working on a really big research project that I'm trying to have done by April. That's a long time. And so if I didn't break it down, this project seems overwhelming. So I gave myself tasks. I need to finish my interviews by the end of October. I need to finish transcribing my interviews by the end of November. I want an outline by the middle of December. These are small goals that I can have good time limits for, so I can keep myself on track for this big project that I'm trying to do. Next, make use of many different sources. Research comes from the world around us. You should be reading books. You should be reading newspapers. You should be reading periodicals and research papers that you have access to. Sources also include people. If you know that your professor or that another professor that you've never met before, or maybe a friend that you have is doing a similar research project, those people are sources. Talk to them. Sources are also your own life, the world around you. As you walk around, you're constantly intaking information. As you're getting new information, that information is coming from a source. Make use of the world around you and keep thinking about and keeping track of the information that you are taking in as you live your life every day. These are some research strategies. Next, I want to talk about an important skill in research, which is paraphrasing. As you are getting knowledge from books, from people, you want to make sure that you're not using those words exactly. You probably know about the word plagiarizing, right? We don't want to use somebody else's words exactly, because those are their words. We're going to try to use them in our own words so that we can make sense of the information, and so that I can put it in my research project and that it is my own understanding of somebody else's words. To paraphrase effectively, you want to do a few things. You want to, one, identify key words. What are the key ideas and how are they related to each other? Next, you want to brainstorm synonyms. So I'm looking at key words in this person's sentence, or in this person's idea, in this person's thoughts. What are the synonyms for those words? What are the other words that I can use instead? What are the things that are related to this concept? Once I have the keywords, I have the relationships, I have some synonyms for the words that the author has used, I want to try to explain it in my own words. One of the best strategies that you can use for paraphrasing is to read something that one person has written, to try to understand it yourself, and then to go explain it to another person. Because when you explain these things that you are understanding, or that you are trying to understand, you explain them in your own words. Those are the things that you should be writing down, are your own words, the ways that you have explained it to somebody else. One thing you can do is change the order of the ideas in a sentence. So if the author writes 1, 2, 3, switch the ideas around. Write 2, 1, 3, or 3, 2, 1, or 3, 1, 2. Switching around the order of an ideas can help you not use the same words that an author has used. Next, combine ideas that go together. So as you have, again, identified keywords and relationships within the thoughts that the author has had, or within the thing that the author is trying to communicate, you can group them. You can organize what the author has said. You might find that certain ideas go together, that all of these different words refer to the same thing. And so you can shorten it or use different words to say the same thing that the author has said. So here's an example of paraphrasing that you can see some of these strategies, these paraphrasing strategies worked out in real time. So here's the sentence that I'm starting with. She angered me with her inappropriate comments, rumor spreading, and disrespectfulness at the formal dinner table. Here is an example of what sounds like a story. But if I want to take this sentence and paraphrase it to make sure that I'm not plagiarizing in my work, there are a few ways that I might write it. First, I might write simply that she made me angry when she was rude at dinner. These are the main ideas simplified. I have my feeling, which is anger, and I have the reason, which is she was rude. So this is one example of how I can paraphrase this into a much shorter sentence. Here's a little bit longer one. Her impoliteness, gossiping, and general lack of respect at dinner infuriated me. So I've done two things. One, I've switched the order of ideas. I started with the reason and I ended with the feeling, which is the opposite of the original. And then I've used synonyms to kind of translate some of the main ideas. So impoliteness matches with inappropriate comments. Gossiping matches with rumor spreading. General lack of respect connects to disrespectfulness. So I've used synonyms to make sure that I'm not using the exact same words as the author in what they've written. And then a last example. I was mad when she started spreading rumors, making inappropriate comments, and disrespecting other guests at our dinner. So this is probably the closest to the original, but I've used a little bit of synonyms to make sure that I'm not using the same words. So I've used mad instead of angered, which are synonyms but can be used in the same way. And then I've also changed the order of ideas a little bit. So I said spreading rumors first instead of rumor spreading. So I changed the word and I changed the order. Making inappropriate comments came second, and then disrespecting other guests instead of disrespectfulness. And so there are small changes that make sure that I'm using my own words to say the same sentence. Paraphrasing is a really important skill for a few reasons. One, it makes sure that you understand what the author has written and are communicating that in your own words. A lot of times, if you only copy what the author has written, you're not communicating the information very well. Paraphrasing allows it to connect you, or to connect that idea to the larger structure of your research paper. So that's why it helps, and it also helps you from plagiarizing, which is really important. But speaking of plagiarizing, I want to talk a little bit about citing your sources or references. This is really important. As you are using information that you've gotten from other places, from other people, from the internet, from a magazine, from a newspaper, from an online periodical, you need to make sure that you're citing your sources. It prevents plagiarism, and it allows you to return to those sources later, and it allows other people to go check your sources as well. As you are collecting information in your research, keep track of your sources. If you get an idea from this periodical, if you get an idea from this news article, if you get an idea from a person, write that down in your notes. Because you don't want to be writing your research paper to have an idea that you remember you got from somewhere and to not be able to find it again. That takes up a lot of time, and it can be really, really frustrating. I take it from someone who has done that and made a big mistake in doing that. So as you are writing your notes, as you have an idea or a sentence that comes from a piece of work, write down the page, write down the person, write down the source itself. That can help you a lot. Next, as you're citing, use a website like Purdue OWL, that's the one that I generally use, to make sure that you have all of the correct information in your citations. On the internet, there are a lot of citation machines that I can just put in information and it'll generate a citation for me. I don't recommend using those because they're not always perfect, and sometimes you're forgetting something. a website like Purdue Owl or other websites that take you through all of the information that you need to create a good citation, if you use those, you can make sure that you are writing your citations in the way that your teacher wants you to, and in a way that is correct based on the citation format that you're using. So I really encourage you to use websites like Purdue Owl is a great one. And then last, always cite everything that you can cite. If you can cite it, it comes from a person, it comes from your friend, it comes from your teacher, it comes from a book or an article, cite it. Partly because it helps you too. If you want more information on this idea, if you don't remember why you say this or why you think this, writing down a citation can allow you to return to that same person, that same article to check your understanding again later, and it can help other people make sure that they understand what you are saying by checking your citation. So these have been some helpful tips for you about research. As you go into your own research in university, you should be thinking about how can you do research effectively, how can you organize your research, how can you make sure that you are not plagiarizing and citing all your sources as you need to be. It can help you and it can help others. I hope you enjoy your research moving forward, and I look forward to seeing you next time.